It's water test day.
Thanks. Hey Dave, what's up, man? Alright, so the initial test went great. It's time to pick out our very first fish to put in this new tank. Hey everybody, at the end of this video series, we're going to be giving away this Cobalt C-Vue 18. If you want to figure out how to do that and to get your submission in, check out the video in the link above. Also, at the end of this video, you'll be able to click on the entire playlist for contest submission and the entire series. Good luck, everybody.
What's going on, guys? Dave here at the Reef Aquarium Shop in Indianapolis, Indiana. Today we're going to be talking about fish selection. So in the previous videos, we've gone through this entire tank setup from scratch and got it all the way to the point of cycling. It has been running for 2 weeks, and so we tested the water. It was looking great, as you saw, so we stuck our first entries in. For this tank, I decided to go with white clouds. It made the most sense to me since they're super versatile and can be put with so many other things. Now, when you're choosing your fish for your aquarium at home, there's several things you want to take into consideration. Of course, you want to take in tank size. This one is 18 gallons. You also want to base your first fish decisions on what you have planned for the rest of the tank as well. If you know that you're going to be stocking a certain fish, your first fish in should be compatible with the fish that you want to put there in the future. And one of the most important things that we need to take into consideration when picking our first fish is the hardiness of the fish. Even though we've gone through a cycle, these are going to be the first living organisms that are producing ammonia at any sort of decent scale in here. So our beneficial bacteria are still going to be building up to compensate for that ammonia load. We're still going to be swinging our parameters a little bit here. We might even see a touch of an ammonia spike, and that's to be expected. So again, I picked white clouds for a reason. They're very hardy. They're pretty much just a fancy Danio. They're not going to get too big, so they will definitely fit in this tank long term. And they're very compatible with a lot of different things that could go in this tank as well. In general, fish compatibility can be a very lengthy topic that I'm not really going to cover in its entirety in this video. What I do want to focus on in this video is community fish compatibility. So we're going to go over a few options that you could stick in a 15 to 20 gallon tank. A lot like this one. Everything I mentioned will be viable options to stick in here with these white clouds, but definitely look forward to future videos that are going to elaborate a lot more on compatibility of different types of fish. So since the white clouds are schoolers, I'm going to go ahead and go over some nice showpiece fish that could go in here first. These are fish that are more than likely going to be in here singly or in pairs or something like that. My top recommendation for fish that can go in a smaller community tank is hands down gouramis. There are a bunch of different types of gouramis to choose from, all the way from the tiny little sparkling gouramis up to the slightly heftier dwarf gouramis. Now, you don't want to go with one of your 3 spots like a blue gourami, gold gourami, platinums, opalines, lavenders. Pearls are going to get too big for this setup. Pretty much it's just a sizing issue. The sparklings, the dwarves, honey gouramis, paradise would even be fine in a 20 gallon or so. So those are all fantastic options and great showpiece fish. They're also all very hardy species, so you're not going to have to worry about trying to take extra care of them. They're not going to be sensitive. Another great fish to do in a setup like this would be rams or apistos. I love rams and apistos. They're dwarf cichlids that are, if we're honest, they're going to be semi-aggressive, but they are stuck with community fish quite a lot because their aggression is more over territory than actually just being a jerk. They're going to find a spot in the tank, or a couple spots in the tank even, and defend those spots from the rest of the fish, not really causing any damage, but you will see some aggression out of them. They still make fantastic community fish and can go with pretty much any other community fish that you're commonly going to be sticking in an aquarium. The problem with putting them into this particular setup would be the water parameters. In this tank, I've just used tap water. In Indiana, our tap water is very hard and alkaline, where rams and apistos are going to prefer a much softer water. I've seen some people successfully acclimate rams and apistos over to a harder water, but that does take some work and a lot of patience. So those are typically my main recommendations for a showpiece type of fish in a smaller community tank. Now let's get into some other schoolers. Some of my favorite schoolers are going to be TETRAS and RASBORAS. In the Tetra family, I'm a real big fan of Ember Tetras. I also like the look of black neons. You can absolutely go with the classic of your standard neons or cardinals. Cardinals in general are going to prefer a much softer water. The other Tetra species tend to like a softer water but can acclimate over to a harder water pretty easily. Just take your time with acclimation. Other great tetras to consider are the silver tip brass tetras. Pristilla tetras actually make a nice addition into a smaller tank as well, which kind of leads me into, if you noticed, most of those tetras I mentioned are long-bodied tetras and not like round-bodied tetras. They're torpedo-shaped, not disc-shaped. Most of your disc-shaped tetras, like skirt tetras or diamond tetras, red-blue Colombians, those tend to get a little bigger, and if you're going to want a decent school of them, which you are going to want a decent school of them since they are a schooling fish, they do want numbers. They say the bare minimum is 3. I try to recommend at least 5, if not plenty more. But typically, those rounder tetras, again, are going to get a little bigger and want a little more room. A couple of my favorites there would be like the diamond tetras or the red-blue Colombians. But again, those are probably going to need a slightly larger tank than just a 20-gallon in the long run. Rasboras are fantastic. There's a lot of micro Rasbora species like the chilies, there's the galaxy Rasboras, green fires. There's a lot of different tiny Rasboras that you can put plenty of in here. Another great one is the Harlequin Rasbora. That's not going to be like a micro Rasbora. It's just going to still be a smaller fish, but they're gorgeous. Harlequins, and very similar are the pork chops. They have just more orange defined around them. But those are a super neat Rasbora as well and would be fantastic additions. Oddball ideas. So a lot of people ask me, what's a super unique fish that I can put in a smaller tank? And typically, most of your popular oddball species are going to get large, right? And you need a larger tank, obviously, to hold a larger fish. But there are some great options that you can do in a smaller tank like this. One of my favorites is pea puffers. They're super popular. I love puffers in general. So typically people aren't going to mix pea puffers in a smaller tank, especially with other fish. They're not necessarily an aggressive fish, but they're a very curious fish, and their hands are their teeth, so they can get quite nippy with others. Actually, they can get quite nippy with each other, but they're kind of just, that's the way they are. They're gonna just have some squabbles within themselves. But this would be a prime tank for a colony of pea puffers. Another great one that people don't think about, we were talking about rams and apistos earlier, there are actually dwarf African cichlids. Again, this tank is hard and alkaline. African cichlids love hard and alkaline water. This would be a perfect setup for a colony of shell dwellers. Maltese, brevis, those are fantastic little cichlids that have some amazing personality. They're super fun to watch. Basically, all you would do is just add some larger shells on the sand bed here, and they're going to basically use that as their house and where they breed, and they're going to stick the babies in there and protect that shell. It's super neat, and you can absolutely do that in something like a 10 to 20 gallon. I've even seen people successfully keep shell dwellers with other fast schooling fish. They, again, are cichlids, so they can get a little nippy, but for the most part, they're gonna stay on the bottom. So if you have some top dwellers like these white clouds, for the most part, they're gonna get along just fine. So I can't really talk about stocking ideas and compatibility for a smaller tank without bringing up bettas. Bettas are great. So you can actually do a betta with other fish. You don't want to put them with other bettas or gouramis, since they are essentially just a type of gourami. They don't like that, they'll fight each other. But you can absolutely put them with fast schooling fish, because they're slow. They're not going to be harming anything that's going to be quick. Again, the white clouds, they're versatile. You can stick those in there with them. Most of the TETRAS, all of the TETRAS that I mentioned can hang out with them. The Harlequin RASBORAS can hang out with them. The micro RASBORAS might be a little small. The bettas might end up being jerks to them. Pretty much anything quick, short-finned, and schooling can hang out with bettas just fine, and bettas make a great showpiece. Give them some room and a little bit of flow, definitely not too much flow, and they're actually a quite active fish and a very pretty fish to watch in your tank. So, you might be wondering, Dave, why haven't you talked about live bearers? I haven't talked about live bearers in a small tank because live bearers live bear, and they live bear a lot. They will pump babies into your tank on a pretty consistent basis, and very, very quickly in a smaller tank, you're just gonna get overrun with a bunch of live bearers. Now, if you want that, that's fine, but you know, you'll get overpopulated in here. You're gonna have to start pulling fish pretty frequently to be able to keep up with that waste load. So, I don't usually do live bearers in a smaller tank like this. If you want to do live bearers, absolutely, I love live bearers. I highly recommend only getting males. Obviously, if you don't have any females in the tank, they're not going to produce any young. Plus, especially for like your guppies, the males tend to be the larger finned and more colorful species. So yeah, that is some freshwater community compatibility and stocking ideas for a smaller tank. So before we wrap this up and give the tank away, I want to give you my overview on the Cobalt C-Vue 18. The stand was a super easy build. The tank just simply sits on top of it. All your filtration is included. You pick a light that is going to be best for your setup and you toss it on top, and then you just have at it. Overall, this was super simple, super easy. The water flow is great. The fish seem to be enjoying it. Now, my biggest complaint on these C-Vues is that the grates for the spillovers in the back are a little large. I've actually had a few white clouds end up in the filtration. I mean, easy fix, net them out, stick them into the main tank, but they can fit through here. Tiny fish can definitely fit through these spots. There's some easy remedies for that. Typically, I'm just going to stick a media sock or a sponge material behind this so that fish can't get through it. But other than that issue, with a simple fix, this has been a fantastic tank to set up and run. I'm definitely a fan. So at the beginning of the series, you may remember that I have a glass top for this tank. Now, I've actually enjoyed running this open top. I like the look of it, but it does evaporate like crazy. So, before we end the series, to top it all off, let's put the top on. Alright, so this is the glass top. It comes in 3 pieces that you just put together at the hinges there. Super easy, you just press them on, and then stick this on top of the tank. And just like that, we've got a glass top on the thing. One of the things I really like about this glass top is that it has a complete cover over the filtration portion with a little cutout for your cords in the back. That makes everything just nice and sleek. And honestly, you don't really lose too much of that rimless feel. It's so low profile. So that's gonna do it for the build, but we are not quite done yet. As we've stated throughout this whole series, we are going to be giving this tank an entire setup away. So if you want to do that, hang out to the end of this video and click the link at the end
and that will tell you how to get your submission in so you have a chance to win this. Once we have selected our winner, we will be adding one more video to this series, and that's going to be, how do you move a tank? How do you move a tank? But for now, if you got some good information out of this video, give this video a like. If you want more content like this, please hit that subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell notification to let you know every time we post new content. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.